Good day to all. Welcome to Extreme Recap. During the dinosaur era, an astronaut from another planet crashes on Earth. To avoid becoming a T-Rex's lunch and escape before the day's collision with a large asteroid, he will need to use all of his civilization's technology. We'll go over the movie's plot again. 65 from 2023. Prior to the arrival of humans on the planet, Samaris and animal types basically the same as our own arrived at the zenith of innovative development, space investigation. Airships have gained a lot of popularity because there are people living on a lot of different planets, transferring passengers between worlds like regular buses. Mills is one of the best pilots on the team, so he has to lead a team that will take passengers to one of the farthest routes. He wants to stay with his daughter, but he has to stay in space for more than 2 years. Naveen, who is sick, the man accepts that the installment will actually want to pay for the young lady's therapy, thus chooses to acknowledge the mission. With a couple of days left before the outing, processes at last works up the determination and chooses to enlighten his girl concerning the new mission, bidding farewell and promising to return securely to complete the treatment. Mills is in charge of the ship while they are traveling when they are struck by a few small meteors. That alone cannot damage the spacecraft, but a veritable wall of meteors and asteroids forms a few light years ahead. The ship's artificial intelligence begins a series of safety checks in anticipation of the impending shock and decides to switch to manual control mode. However, since everyone on the crew is asleep, they keep on pushing forward energetically toward the calamity. They begin to collide with the meteors in a matter of seconds, causing severe damage to the spacecraft. Waking Mills, he rushes to the control room to try to make things right, but it's too late. The man makes every effort to save the ship as captain. However, the harm has already been done, and he has no choice but to make an emergency landing on the nearest planet and send Samaris an SOS message as they descend to the ground. The spacecraft sustains additional damage as it enters the atmosphere due to air friction and eventually splits in half, with one half falling to the top of a mountain and the other half falling as debris. A couple of kilometers ahead, a couple of hours after the effect, Factories awakens with serious torment in his mid-region and finds that a finger-measured piece of metal has penetrated his stomach, expecting him to eliminate the item and wrap it with his exposed hands. Even though the artificial intelligence states that none of the astronauts have a vital signal, the astronaut dons his spacesuit and begins to explore the aircraft in search of his colleagues. Mills then notices that something is knocking on the vehicle's exterior and decides to gather weapons and explosives to investigate. The man explores the area with apprehension after realizing that he has fallen directly into a swamp and does not know what lies beneath the murky waters. However, the only thing he can find outside are the bodies of the passengers and crew, proving that the AI was correct. The astronaut looks for his current coordinate in the landing data. However, Mills is unable to provide the rescue team with his precise location because the artificial intelligence is unable to identify which planet they are on. The man begins to keep a log of everything that has happened, greatly reducing his chances of being saved with his ship cut in half and no way to escape. Mills finds out that 9 escape modules were destroyed in the crash and that 2 more are still missing after taking a look at what he has left and documenting everything he finds on the new planet. Therefore, all he needs to do to escape is locate them. However, it does not appear that the artificial intelligence can locate them, leaving them with nothing to do until help arrives. The solitary space explorer is secured in the control room, watching accounts of Naveen until the artificial intelligence faculty's imperative signs and understands that somebody has figured out how to get by, sending the crew members to various locations so that Mills can rescue her at night. Following the GPS, the man departs the ship and traverses the forest, locating the nest full of enormous eggs along the way. After a couple of additional miles, he finds a totally obliterated freezing chamber and understands that a young lady is oblivious inside. After that, Mills gets the fuselage to open, and he takes the young girl off of his lap. However, as he travels, he becomes aware that he is not the only living thing on the planet when he comes across a huge footprint and a number of strange sounds. In point of fact, he crashed to Earth during the time of the dinosaurs. In a panic, the man returns the girl to the ship with her and begins to take care of her there. With the young lady marked stable, Plants chooses to attempt to find the final module so they can get away. However, because the artificial intelligence hasn't found it yet, he has to look for it on his own. Mills discovers a nearly complete dinosaur skeleton while exploring our planet when a hot spring bursts open in front of him, spewing an absurd amount of water and steam. The man notices something glowing on top of a mountain as he watches the drops fall and immediately suggests that it is the cruiser's other half, where the remaining modules might be excited. The lost astronaut takes his scanner and points it at the spacecraft. He finds that the escape module is still inside and is 15 kilometers away from the spacecraft. In any case, he realizes that he should go through a valley brimming with threats to arrive while watching the direction before him. Plants is gone after by a little dinosaur that flies at his neck, attempting to get him no matter what. However, with a few alert blows to the creature's chest, the man is able to easily eliminate it. When the astronaut hears the sound of branches breaking around him, he runs back to the ship. He is on high alert, but he soon realizes that the girl is hiding and watching him scared. The girl starts to run in Mills, so he decides to go after her to protect her. But they end up falling into a ravine and finding a decaying body. Mills starts asking the girl a lot of questions because they have to get away before the predator comes back to finish eating their prey. However, as he is completely ignored, he decides to look at her passenger list and finds that her name is Koa. She was a passenger who was traveling to her home planet with her family to comfort her. Mills tells her about the escape pod he discovered and promises to get her safely home, but only if he can. They should move beyond the risky hunters outwardly as yet being overlooked. County does not speak his language when the man examines her file one last time. Since his interpreter was harmed during the accident, the boat skipper tosses a few zest on the table and attracts with his finger to attempt to make sense of the ongoing goal. Leaving the young lady considerably more confounded, needing to know how her family is doing. Coate draws a picture of other people working in Mills and decides to lie to her by claiming that her parents are alive and waiting to meet her on the top of the mountain. Mills sends a final rescue call and gathers as much equipment as he can to aid in the endeavor, already aware that it will be difficult. Using all of Samari's weapons, they set out toward the mountain. Mills begins his early morning hike with everything prepared, achieving good distance without encountering any dangerous creatures. Koa starts running when a tree suddenly falls in front of them, and she ends up in a mud puddle where a puppy is stuck in pity. The girl runs to the small reptile to assist him in removing him from the mud, ignoring all risks. With Factory's help, however, a gathering of speed raptors in the area sees the whelp and goes after him. Eating up him before Koa in shock, the young lady fires shouting and winds up drawing in the consideration of the hunters. Yet, Factories figures out how to inspire all her science, and the hysterical animals leave, hauling the offsprings remains away. Drained and in torment, Cohen, the new guardian, decides to stop at a nearby stream and refills his water bottle before they resume their walk. However, the water interferes with the tracker in some way, which ceases to function as soon as they resume movement, requiring them to travel independently to determine which way to go. Mills tries to resynchronize the GPS while scaling a treetop. Be that as it may, one of the branches breaks in. As if this weren't bad enough, the man falls more than 10 meters, dislocating his arm in the process. A group of dinosaurs moves closer, compelling the space traveler to hit his appendage into the tree to attempt to set up it back. Mills asks Koa to step on his arm and put all of her weight in one place because it doesn't work. This allows Mills to reattach the arm and shoot the creatures at the last moment. Indeed, even with his very mechanical weapons, Factories realizes he is dwarfed and requests that the young lady take off as could be expected, establishing a couple of projectiles on the ground as she takes off with his firearm at full power. The man figures out how to wipe out the odd little dementors and runs, preventing the girl from becoming a dinosaur lunch at the last minute. At the point when things appear to be more settled, another dinosaur shows up and snatches the young lady by the shirt, hauling her toward the woods. Mills, desperate to hit the lizard, runs after them. However, despite his failure to strike it, he manages to frighten the animal, which causes it to release Koa and vanish into the landscape. With the girl still in shock, the astronaut decides to carry her on his back until they locate a cave where they can spend the night. Mills begins searching space for his planet after installing an alarm system on the ground. However, the device is inaccurate because it finds that a lot of meteors are making the sky look odd. With everything done, the two start to rest until around midnight. The caution framework begins blazing red, flagging that something hazardous is close by. The man gets up and investigates at the cave entrance without knowing what's going on. While the girl was sleeping, a huge insect got into her mouth and fed on the saliva on her tongue, not realizing that the real danger was inside Koa. Desperate, Mills breaks one of the sensors and brings it close to Cohen's mouth, releasing the worm and allowing her to wake up and breathe again after locking her throat and making her sick and short of breath. In that instant, they hear a roaring sound coming from a small tunnel inside the cave, prompting them to move away and toward the exit as the other sensors begin to flash frantically. While they are being distracted by the sound, they are not imagining that something much worse is outside. A uber deluge saurus attempts to stick its head inside the cavern, and Plants promptly sets his firearm to full power, handling a few shots on the hunter. The T-Rex, furious and in pain, tries to enter the area where the two are to eat them. In addition, in order to avoid becoming skewers that would fall into the lowest part of the cave in order to locate themselves, the two humans are forced to enter through the tunnel. They are not yet safe because smaller dinosaurs are still after them, but Mills uses his scanner to find a stream of air pointing to the exit. The two of them end up in ever smaller spaces as they follow the scanner until they finally escape. However, the Mills were forced to use improvised tools to clear the passage because the hole was so small and full of rocks. But he can't get it open enough, so he gives up and accepts that he will stay in the cave until some prehistoric monster eats him. However, Cohen maintains his determination and tries to inspire him. Mills remembers that he still has some grenades and decides to use them to open the passage through the rock after noticing the efforts of the girl. The girl enters the entire area with Mills, who follow, in order to give some to Koa in case she needs to use them one day with the rift sufficiently open. Be that as it may, the blast wound up harming the construction of the cavern, which immediately begins to collapse on top of them, separating the two of them. Mills retreats inside the cave, where he is promptly struck by a dinosaur that vanishes into the night, completely in the dark. The man uses his device to look around, but he doesn't realize the predator is there until it's too late, and he gets caught before he can run away unarmed. Mills can only attempt to crawl, while the dinosaur gives its all to drag him from one side to another with extraordinary trouble. The man figures out how to arrive at the scanner and enacts the high recurrence capability, dazzling the hunter, lastly permitting it to go after its weapon, polishing the animal off with a reasonable shot on the opposite side of the passage. Koa manages to emerge from the cave and enters the forest to begin her exploration. Soon after, discovering a massive dinosaur tooth embedded in a log. Mills also looks out the tunnel and sees that the asteroid is getting closer and closer to hitting the Earth directly. The man begins his desperate search for Koa, who is being pursued by an additional of the small dinosaurs. Hearing Koa's shouts, Plants frantically runs toward the sound. However, he rushes ahead without paying attention to where he is going, and as a result, he slips and falls into a pool of quicksand, sinking until he is completely covered in mud. Not a long way from that point, the young lady figures out how to trap the dinosaur inside the log and tosses the bombs through the opening where the tooth was exploding everything. Finally, Free scurries toward the Mills and hangs herself from the nearest branch, lowering the trunk into the quicksand with her weight, saving her companion's life. Mills makes his way to the girl in safety and explains that the asteroid that destroyed the airship was actually just a small fragment of a much larger meteor that is heading straight for them, illuminating them that the anticipated effect is 12 hours away. When it gets dark, they climb until they reach the other half of the aircraft at the foot of the mountain. When Mills enters the auxiliary cabin, he discovers a message informing the man that his distress call has been acknowledged and that the navigation system is functioning properly, which makes the man extremely content. Be that as it may, Cohen doesn't appear to mind and goes searching for her folks, feeling awful for having lied. In an effort to console the girl, Mills goes after her and decides to tell her his story. He says that his daughter Naveen only got worse after he left, until she died, knowing what it's like to lose a loved one. The man says he will do whatever it takes to get her home. Cohen also makes the decision to forgive him, but they don't have much time for sentimentality because an intense meteor shower starts to fall on Earth before the asteroid and there is no time to wait for rescuers. The two go to the brake module and start to do their pre-takeoff checks. However, just as they are getting close to pressing the launch button, the ship is hit by one of the meteors. Koa regains consciousness and independently presses the launch button, causing the ship as a whole to disintegrate in the module and fall into the abyss at the base of the mountain. However, the security system does not permit the takeoff because they are upside down, saying that they are in an invalid situation. Furthermore, the module collided right with the hunting grounds of a ravenous T-Rex, what starts going after the boat, attempting to gobble up them. At the moment, when Mills finally wakes up, he finds that the predator is right next to his gun, exits the module to retrieve the object after removing his seatbelt. The man manages to reach his weapon and tries to use it to its full potential to kill the predator, despite being severely wounded and exhausted. However, the firearm is coming up short on energy and can't make a solitary shot. The issue is that when a second tyrannosaur appears, it is forced to flee into the wreckage for safety, utilizing the present circumstance to reprogram the weapon and restore its functionality. Koa is forced to unbuckle her seatbelt and use the projector to reproduce one of Nevin's holograms, drawing the attention of the two predators and providing the opening Mills needed to land a fatal shot on one of the T-Rex because the man cannot prepare in time and is cornered when the first one lands. The enduring tyrannosaur acknowledges what the young lady has done and surges full power toward the module, hitting a headbutt so hard that it turns the boat all around. Mills comes out of hiding worried about the girl and fires, hitting the monster with a shot that bruises his leg. In any case, the man continues to shoot and doesn't stop until his weapon is all the way out of ammo, putting an end to the second T-Rex for good. Right now, the situation distinguishes that the module is in the right position and starts one self-fix cycle, leaving the two very feeling better. However, the feeling is short-lived when an even larger dinosaur appears and begins pursuing Mills to save the girl. She immediately begins to flee the ship after the man tells her to press the launch button, luring the predator into one of those thermal jets that explode in its face by luring it into it. The armored monster stoops down to grab its prey, seemingly unaffected by the steam's high temperature. Koi appears at that point and drives the tooth into the vehicle. A second jet of thermal water quickly obscures the creature's eye. Mills and Koa were able to safely return to the ship after the predator was completely cooked and fell to the ground lifeless, leaving Earth's atmosphere just in time to avoid the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. Turn on notifications, please subscribe for more videos like this, and like the channel to support it. Thank you very much for watching.